Perfect. Thank you very much. Perfect. We can go down a few. So these are the speakers today. So I will start by presenting the Global Initiative for Western, Central, and Southern Africa very briefly. So the GIWACF was launched in 2006. It's a partnership between the International Maritime Organization and IPICA, which is the Global Oil and Gas, which is a global oil and gas industry association for environmental and social issues, mainly to enhance the capacity of partner countries to prepare for and to respond to marine oil spills. So the mission of the GIWACF is to strengthen the national system for preparedness and response in the case of an oil spill in 22 West, Central, and Southern African countries, in accordance with the provisions set out in the International Convention on Oil Pollution Preparedness and Response and Cooperation, so the OPRC 90. In order to achieve its mission, the GIWACF project organizes and delivers regular workshops, seminars, and exercises that aim to communicate good practice in all aspects of spill preparedness and response. Could you be in full screen? I think we can see the notes in the presentation you're sharing. And go back to the previous slide. Previous slide. Yep. Perfect. Okay, that's fine. So to prepare and implement our activities, we rely on the project's network of dedicated government and industry focal points. So I think you can go back to the previous slide, please. Yes, perfect. So as mentioned, the GIWACF is based on the OPRC convention, and it's 6 pillars on which it lays. So the first pillar being to foster joint endeavor between private and public sector, to provide support to partner countries, in the implementation of sub-regional and national oil spill preparedness and response systems. Thirdly, to provide tailored capacity building solutions, but also to organize workshops, training courses, and exercises, to better communicate and collaborate between governments and industry, and finally, to encourage our partner countries to ratify and implement IMO conventions. So this precise webinar responds to the 4th pillar I mentioned, so the organization of workshops, training courses, and exercises. And the subject of our webinar today, if you can go to the next slide, please, is drift modeling and oil spill preparedness and response at sea. So the outline of the presentation is the following. We'll first talk about the purpose of modeling tools. So why do we use them? How to use them? Which is linked to what information do you need for modeling? So the input data, where does it come from? Where can you get it? As well as we're going to present the main categories of models by adding a few examples before going to the demonstrations. So we will propose 2 demonstrations, one with MOTHY and one with WebGnome, which are 2 different softwares. Our experts will give more detail on those. And we will then compare both models, analyze the results that we have, and lastly, dive into the limitations on modeling use and the warnings we can give as experts before going to the summary and conclusion. So I think I can give the speech now to Vincent.
Thank you. Okay. So first of all, the purpose of modeling tools, weathering and transport is in case of an accident at sea, it is very important to define a strategy, to know if you want to use whether to pump with skimmer or disperse the oil or protect the shoreline. You have to know and you have to anticipate, and it's very important to know the behavior of the oil in the next the few hours or few days after the spill, and the drift of the oil slick, the transport of the slick, which shoreline should be impacted. So it's very useful for operational people to anticipate with thanks to this models, and these models should be used as soon as possible at the beginning of the spill, and if possible, recalibrate and compare to observation you can get with aerial or satellite or buoys observation. Buoys you can drop on the oil slick, because all information, all observation you will get during the spill drift will allow to comfort, to compare, and to recalibrate the model. So it's very important to get this observation information. What information do you need for modeling? It is very important if you want to get reliable result. It is important to get good input data. So first input data is a type of oil, the properties of oil. In order to run the weathering model, it is necessary to get the properties for the weathering. If you don't know the type of oil, you can also run the model drift, because some transport model don't use sometimes it's only you if it's possible you fill in the density, because the density can be a factor for the drift. But anyway, you can also run the drift model without the exact properties. The second information is the winds and currents, the environmental data. This is very important because this is the main input data for the drift, especially for the drift. And before we use models, we use on paper charts. We use a rule, which is 3% of the wind speed and 100% of the current. So this is a vectorial sum of these parameters, so you can get an approximative idea of how the drift will the oil slick will drift. Okay, but it's not a perfect rule, and so it just keep in mind this information that the current is the most important parameter in general, except in area where there is not current, for example. And but today you can get a wide range, a lot of data sets about currents and winds, local currents, regional and global data sets. You can get from different web server. Some are free, some are commercial server, but there is a wide variety of data set, and Pierre Daniel will talk you later about this data. Then you have to know precisely the spill location of the accident, for example, the amount, and if possible, the water temperature, the salinity, and the sea state, in order to parameter the model. So there are different categories of models for different uses. First one is oil weathering models, because you can use oil weathering model without using a transport model. It's possible just to know the evaporation, the emulsification, the dispersion, all this information about the weathering of the oil. It could be used for study or for real case during accident. Some model can both modelize the oil weathering and the oil transport. And this is a deterministic model with, for a scenario, 1 day, 1 hour, 1 location, so you can get one oil drift results. it is a little bit different from stochastic models. Stochastic models are like statistic models, which are also known as probability models. They show the probability of where an oil spill might impact for defined time periods. It's mainly for study, for contingency planning. On backtracking models, it's like reverse the trajectory modeling process. So you can, for example, look for a spill origin when, for example, there is an illicit discharge. So Pierre Daniel will show you an example of this kind of model later. And so this is a little list of different models we can use. Some are commercial models, some are open source, and other institutional. First one are software with licenses like Oil Map from RPS in USA, Oscar from Sintef in Norway, Mike from DHI, and OSIS, but I'm not sure is still exists. And so for this software, you have to buy a license or to get an annual to provide an annual fee to use it. There are also some open source, some free models you can use through different platforms. I will show you later a demonstration with WebGnome from NOAAs, so you can run the model directly on the web. I will show you a demonstration. You can use OpenDrift from Meteno, but you have to install an open source software on your computer, so it's a little bit complicated to use. MOTY model, Pierre Daniel will explain you later how to use MOTHY through the framework of MPRSS on the worldwide area. And finally, there is White Owl on a web platform. Then I have no time to show you this other platform, but it's also possible to run some models with this. This is an example of model. This is Oil Map from RPS. So you can see this is a typical software where you get with a GIS layer where you can see the oil spill drift, the wind and current direction, which you can see for each time step the evolution of environmental data. And during the simulation, you can also see the weathering oil with for evaporation, dissolution, ashore, and water column. And just quickly about just a quick word about stochastic model, statistic model. This is especially used for study for contingency planning. You can run a combination of 500 runs or 100, and for example, you can use 5 years or 10 years historical data. And specifically, for example, for a season, winter or summer, for example, and so you can ask the model to provide you some probability of presence of slick regardless of time. For example, on the map, the first map at the top, you can see different color of green, and according to the color, you know the probability of presence of the slick. And you also can get some information about the minimum time to reach the coast. So this is very useful when you want to know how many hours you have before the landings of the oil in order to protect the shoreline or to collect the oil at sea, for example. So it's mainly for contingency planning and study. And last one is WebGnome from NOAA. So I will show you a demonstration later. You can download the wind and current dataset on the website. So you can also use your own METEO dataset, and then you configure your scenario on the website also, and you can get the result. I will show you this later. And yes, another one is Adios, only for weathering process. I show you this software because you can use without any internet connection, so it's quite useful. You have to install the software on your computer, and it's very simple to use. You can download on the NOAA website, and you enter information about oil properties and about the temperature, information about winds, for example, or currents, but for very simple data. There is no map. It is only a overall budget where you can get evaporation, emulsification, dispersion, viscosity, density. So it's very useful, for example, to know the density. For example, if you want to know if the pollutant is likely to sink or not, it's interesting to know the viscosity in order to know if you can pump, you can use some skimmer to get the oil or not, or if you can disperse the oil. So all this information, this operational information are very useful for during the crisis. But you can also get this information through software transport model. I will show you later with WebGnome. And then I leave the floor to Pierre Daniel to explain you how MOTHY. Pierre Daniel, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Vincent. So MOTHY is a model in use at METEO France. We have a big experience in using that model since we use it since 1994. It has three modules, one for oil, one for cargo containers, and one for search and rescue targets. So this is an emergency response service. We have the system is activated by marine forecasters. We have 4 people during the day and 3 at night. So we can run it on a 24-hour basis. And we can ensure our response time in less than 30 minutes, especially for search and rescue purposes. For the oil, there is not such a need of quick answer, but we can do it as well. We have a global response capacity, but with some limitation. I will show you that later. So on this map, you can see all the requests we had last year. Each red star represents a request. So you can see most of them are in French waters, but there are also a few along the African coast. And 40% of them are for oil. So there are a few examples of animation of the model. On the left, you can see an animation from an initial position, which is an operational release from a ship, which is in red. And so you can see the drift of the oil, which is in black. On the upper right, this is another location in an area with a very strong tide current. So you can see the movement of the oil due to that tide current. In the bottom right, this is an example of computation, probabilistic computation based on multiple atmospheric scenarios. So with that, we can have very high probability of presence of oil, which is in red, and lower probability in green. So we use this kind of thing mainly for long forecast up to 10 days to check which coast can be impacted by a switch. So this is the framework of the MOTY system. So MOTY is a unique drift model since it has its own hydrodynamic module inside. So we use that mainly to have a better representation of the current in shallow waters along the coast, in one hand, and on the other hand, to have a better representation of the current at the surface and a few meters below the surface, so that we can refine the current given by the large-scale models that are in the bottom left. So we combine this high-frequency current due to wind and tide with low-frequency current that come from oceanic models. We get the wind also from atmospheric models, and with all of that, we compute the movement of the oil with a 3D model, taking into account a number of features, including the floatability and the size of the droplets and so on. And at the end, we provide a forecast on images, animation, and also numerical files in different formats dedicated to our end users. So this is an example of, this is the latest significant incident we had in around Africa, but it was on the eastern side. It was a bulk carrier, Wakashio, that ran aground on a reef in Mauritius. It was in 2020. So we had to do forecast both into the lagoon, so very close to the coast, and also outside the lagoon, because there was a risk for the La Réunion Island, 200 kilometers to the west, and we have to check if there is a risk also for that island. So an important feature is the backward drift. So we can use that if there is a spill on the beach. We can check from where it comes from. So it maybe come from a wreck which is leaking, or from a ship which discharges oil. We do that also for airplane crashed, and there is one example. It was the Egyptair flight from Paris to Cairo that crashed into the Mediterranean Sea in 2016. We crossed backward drift of debris and kerosene, and we were able to locate very quickly the wreck using that information, and to recover the flight recorders. Another feature, next slide, is the statistical trajectory analysis. So we can use that to determine the risk of pollution from an oil platform, for example, or from a wreck. We can identify the shoreline areas that are likely to be impacted, the time frame within they would be impacted. We can estimate the impact on a particular resource, and so it can help the responders to organize their response personnel and equipment. So at the bottom there is an example of such an analysis for a wreck in the channel. We did a continuous release for 30 years to check and make some statistical analysis of the shoreline that may be impacted under different conditions.
So it's time for the first quiz of this presentation. So the first question, so I invite you to go to your chat box and the questions will be asked there. So first question, how can you manually calculate a drift? 3% wind, 100% current, or 3% current, 100% wind? Okay, we have some answers. And the results, final results are 90% for 3% wind and 100% current.
Sorry. Yes, so this is correct. This is correct. This is important to know that the currents is the most, in general, is the most important parameters in the drift, except in area where there is no currents or weak currents. But yes, just keep in mind this this information in order to have some. When you use models, you can analyze by your own the result. It's important to.
Okay, second question. Which models can you use for drifts? Adios or WebGnome and MOTHY? So here are our results. Majority for WebGnome and MOTHY.
Yes, it's not possible to calculate the whole drift with Adios. Adios is specifically for weathering, but now in WebGnome platform you have a module of Adios inside, so you can also use WebGnome to calculate the weathering on the drift. And MOTHY is specific to the drift. You cannot use MOTHY for the weathering. So it's important to know that MOTHY doesn't take account the weathering of the oil.
Thank you very much. Third question and last question for this quiz is, which models can you use to evaluate weathering? So you've answered these.
Yes, yeah.
Let's see how many people pay attention.
Yes, we will see.
Okay, so here are our results.
Yes, it's correct. Yes. So yeah, MOTHY. You can modelize with MOTHY and with WebGnome. Adios is inside WebGnome, so you can use both for weathering. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think the quiz is done, and we can get on with the presentation.
With a demonstration.
Yes, the demonstration.
Can you see?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes. I don't know why I can't. Is it a full screen or not?
It's not a full screen.
Okay.
There it is.
Is it okay?
Yes. Okay, so this is an example of request for the MOTY system. We request the activation of the system by sending a specific form by email. This is an example of the form from Cedre. For English-speaking customers, we have also forms in English, of course. So this is an example here. We have to give some information on the nature of the incident, if it's an exercise or a real accident, if it's in forward mode or in backward mode, if we need the information immediately or if we have time, the length of the simulation, the location, the date and time, and the type of pollutant. So here it's light crude oil. And we need also to have a phone confirmation to activate the system. So on the next slide, this is an example of the result with the animation from the initial point. So you can see the oil move to the north-northwest with the wind and the currents. So we can provide both maps, animation, and a specific file on a specific format, such as KMZ, GPX, and shapefile, so that our customers can include them into their geographic information systems.
So, Pierre, I've shown you a demonstration on MOTY, and I did the same with WebGnome. This is a free software, a free platform you can access on the internet. And so I will show you how to do the modeling by your own. First of all, you have to download the dataset in order to run your model. So I've provided a link just before on the slide on how to go to the website. So when you go to this page, you've got a list of method dataset you can get. So for this modeling, we have used currents from HICOM and winds from GFS from American institution. And so when you click on the dataset on the page just before, you have to download a specific area of interest. So it is a spill offshore from. This is not the location. I'm sorry. It is Angola. It's not Senegal for this modeling, but it is the same page. So you can enter the latitude or longitude of your area, or you can draw on the map, and so you can get the data, wind and currents for this specific area. And then on this page, you go to manual setup in the bottom at the left, manual setup, in order to define your scenario. So you name your scenario. There is a start time for the modeling, a duration of the modeling, on a time step. So the default time step is 15 minutes. So there are a lot of parameters. Sorry, there are a lot of parameters in this. I will not explain all of these parameters. There is some information, help guideline to know how to use these different parameters, but you can, if you don't know, you just use the default parameter. So for example, you enter information for the water, the temperature, the salinity, the sediment. Sediment can be different if you are in near the shoreline or offshore. The wave height, it could be calculated directly by the system if you don't know exactly the wave height. And then you enter the time of release. So sometimes you can have an instantaneous release or a continuous release. Depends. The amount of oil spill, the number of particles. So the default number of particles is 1,000 particles. You have to know that, for example, if you use if there is a continuous slick on for many hours or many days, and you want a simulation for I don't know 3 or 4 or 5 days, you have to increase the number of particles in order to get a good representation of the oil slick. And then you choose the oil you want to modelize, because in WebGnome you also can get weathering data, and there is interaction between the transport modeling and the oil modeling, and on the weathering modeling, sorry. So in this case we use the Arabian Light, crude oil, and but there is a large list of oil available in WebGnome. This is the same list you can get in IDEOS software from NOAA also. So this is the result when you have entered all this information. And just before, yes, you also enter the wind and currents in this interface. The wind and currents you have already downloaded, and then you can launch run the result. So you can see here the oil spill site in blue, and the drift of the oil with the little spillet. What I would like to say, and it's also the same for MOTHY. The spillet you can see here is not the dispersion or how can I say, this is the probability of presence of the oil. This is not because if you use, for example, 10 cube meter or 1,000 cube meter, you will have the same drift, the same form. So this is not a dispersion of the oil. This is a probability of presence of the oil. So once you get the drift, oh yes, this is a comparison between MOTHY and WebGnome. So this is the same scenario. 1,000 tons of Arabian Light, 60 nautical miles from the Angola shoreline, and you can see the drift is quite different from MOTHY and WebGnome. And I will talk later about the comparison of model and the comparison of METEO dataset, but you can see on this map that sometimes there can be different results between the models. So it is important to, if you can, to run different models in order to compare and to get the trends and to get more confident in result. But this is a way to explain you. Sometimes you have to be careful with the result. And the weathering part, just to finish the demonstration, the weathering part you can also get from the website WebGnome, allow you to visualize the the mass balance with evaporation part, the dispersion part. You can see 30% of evaporation of the Arabian Light, for example. The sedimentation, the water content, if the oil take into account water, the viscosity, so all information essential for operational people. So this is weathering and transport result. And yes, the last map you have seen with MOTHY and WebGnome allows. It is very interesting because when in France, when there is an accident, a big accident, for example, like Prestige or Erika 20 years ago, we have created the name for France is a French Monitoring and Prediction Committee for Oil and Chemical Spill, which is composed of Cedre, METEO France, Ifremer, National Hydrographic Service, and on Navy from France. So it is a group of operational people, of scientists, of meteorological and oceanographer. And it is very important to meet every day and to discuss and to analyze the different results, because we run and compare different models, not only different transport model, but also different metocean data set inside the transport model. And then we can compare the model together, and the discussion between scientists and experts allow us to make operational recommendation. We choose just one drift, one result to provide to the authorities. So it is essential to not provide all the results of the models, but just one, the result which seems to be the more realistic, the more reliable. So this is a technical group and discussion every day. And we have also to produce a synthetic map for broadcasting. So there is people, GIS, and people who know GIS on mapping in order to do comprehensive and mapping in order to make the result more visual. And sometimes this committee has got some relationship with other countries. It was the case with the Prestige, for example, in 20 years ago, because Spain was also concerned by the pollution. So this committee discussed with SACEMAR in Spain in order to exchange result model and operational information about observation at sea, for example. So this is not. We are not saying that this is a way to do when there is a pollution, but this is an example that we have put in place in France, and I think what is important is to run maybe not just one model, but different model in order to compare the model. So maybe it will be the conclusion of this slide. And then I leave the floor to Pierre Daniel to explain you how to collect the different metocean data set.
Yeah, thank you, Vincent. As Vincent told you, the importance of environmental data is a key element. So this impact very largely the drift models. So we need wind and currents, and for ocean currents, we can get them from ocean models. So there are here some example of models that are available on the western coast of Africa. So we have free data that can come from the Copernicus service. So for this area, the main model is the Mercator model at 1/12 of a degree. And it's a global model. We have also the ICOM model, which is available through WebGnome, as well as we can get it also directly on ICOM website. We can have also data that are not freely available. You have to pay for them. They can come from SatOcean. So they are a mix of ocean models and satellite data. And for atmospheric models, the free data, they can come from the Arpège model of Météo France, from GFS, the American models, and from NavGem, another American model from the US Navy. And you can also have data that you have to pay for, the data from the IFS. They may come freely available in the next future, but not yet. And you can also get the data from the SatOcean, that they are satellite data, that many observations from satellite. So there are also some limitation for the models due to the many to the current. When you are in a river or in an estuary, most of the time you don't have information on the flow of the river. You don't have the information on the mixing of the fresh water and salt water. So all that information can be crucial for the drift, and you don't have it, so it's dangerous to use the model under these conditions. In a harbor as well, there are very specific areas, and you can build a model for that, but it could take a lot of time, and when there is an accident, you can do it on a rush. Also, along the coast, you can have some current due to the waves, for example, rip currents, and in most cases we don't have that. So it's also must be very careful using models along this kind of coast. And sometimes you can get very high resolution models, but they can put the eddies in the wrong position, and you can get drift forecasts that are not as good as the forecast you can get from global systems. So you have to be very careful near the coast, and you have to take the help of an oceanographer or a meteorologist to help you to use these kind of systems. And so finally, I want to talk about the MPER system, which is the Marine Pollution Emergency Response Support System, which is coordinated by the WMO. So the aim of that system is to provide assistance in international waters in case of an accident of marine pollution. So the ocean are divided into areas of responsibility. On each of these areas, there is a coordinator, and the areas are the same as the one of the GNDSS, so it's global. And on each area, so there is a capacity to provide meteorological information for the operation at sea, and also on the sea state. And in most of them, also a capacity to provide a drift forecast. So basically, that system is designed for response outside water under national jurisdictions, but in some case, we can extend it for national waters at the request of the countries. So here is the map showing who is responsible in the different areas. So as you can see along the western African coast, there are two countries responsible. You have France, north of Democratic Republic of Congo, and you have South Africa, south of Angola. And so how to make a request? So you have to go through your National Meteorological Service to get an answer for this service. So the National Meteorological Service then contact the coordinator. So it can be either the French Meteorological Service or the South African Weather Service, depending on the location of the incident. So there is a specific procedure for this. And then the coordinator then will provide a forecast of oil slick drift.
Okay, so there is a quiz. Wim, are you here? I don't know.
Does it work?
Okay.
Yes.
Just checking if we have more attendees with us. Can I let you present the quizzes? Or I could try if it works. That one, for example. So how to submit a request to METI, either by contacting MPER's weather services or by contacting METEO France. Okay, I think we have our answers. It's a very close tie between both answers.
Yes, you can do both, but if you go through the MPERS service, then you can get an immediate answer from Météo France. If you contact directly Météo France, then you have to sign a contract, and so it will take a lot of times, and maybe you will have to pay for that. So it's for different purposes, I would say.
Thank you very much. Second question, what environmental data sets are relevant for the African region? We have three possible answers here. Copernicus for the current, EFS for the wind, Arpège for Météo France winds. Give you just a few seconds. Okay, I think that was a trick question, wasn't it?
Yes, so Copernicus is current is okay. Arpege also, and for the IFS wind, you can get it, but you have to pay for it at this time. It's
Okay.
not really available yet.
Okay, so everyone was right.
Yes.
And for the last question, what precautions should be taken when using modeling to assess an oil spill? Firstly, always envisage modeling in a port or close to the coast, or run the same transport model with several mid-ocean datasets and run different transport models in order to compare them with each other. Okay, I think we have a majority of answers for the second option.
Yes, this is a good one.
Everyone's right. Perfect. I think we can go to the conclusive slide.
Okay.
Maybe if it's easier, I can share it with the presentation that's already inside the. Oh, no, it's fine.
It's okay.
Perfect. Yeah, it's perfect. We can see the. It's not full screen.
Ah. Mm, I don't know why. It's full screen on mine.
Oh, there. Go before. No.
It's not full screen.
No, we don't see the last slide. It says it's the end of it.
Okay, so maybe we can go to the. I don't know why.
I can do that if you. Let me check.
Yes.
Yep, I'll do it. No worries.
Okay, okay.
I just have to go through every slide.
Yeah, yeah.
It's fine. In 30 seconds, I'll be there. Maybe I can even start sharing so that people are reminded.
Oh.
Here we go.
Okay. So, can you see the full screen? Yes, it's okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, so the conclusion is this is a list of tips I have we have explained you with WebGnome. There is a link to get the dataset from the website and the link to configure your scenario. The link to download the Adios software in order to do to run the weathering model. There is information about how to activate MOTY and information about MOTY on the on this link. And what we have to say for the conclusion is there is no ideal model. There are commercial models, there are institutional model, there are free model, and all models have advantages. And sometimes, for example, if you use a free model, you can get some bugs. You have not assistance, so sometimes it could be complicated to use free model. When you I've got a commercial model, you've got advice and you've got some assistance from the company who provides the software. So there are a lot of ways to use some the different models. You have to find the best way for you, and if possible, you should use different models, different data set inside the same transport model, and different model, different transport model in order to compare and to get the trends and the reliability of the model in order to be more confident in the results. You have to think about the validation and the comparison with the voice drift and all the observation you can get from the field in order to recalibrate the model and in order to compare model result to real observation. And finally, it's important to discuss with experts from weather forecast, from oceanographer, operational people. So it is very important to discuss and to meet every day when there is a big pollution. So that's what I would say to conclude this this webinar. So maybe you have some question about what we have presented. So do not hesitate to ask your question.
Thank you very much. You can ask your questions on the chat. I believe we've had 2 questions already who have disappeared because I've had to reset, but I have them in mind, so it should be okay. I think the first question was about the Philippines, who are having more and more oil spill incidents, and how they could have access to modeling studies or modeling capacities, since the matter is getting more and more urgent.
Do you have some, Pierre? Have you got something to say, or?
Well, we have the same same capacity for the Philippines. And,
Yes, it's the same tools for you can use a WebGnome or OilMap, for example, or all the software we have presented.
They are global. They have a global capacity, so we can do it also for the Philippines.
Thank you. I hope I understood the question correctly. I think that was it. I think there was Fabrice Mittenwell who wanted to ask a question, but can you please write it down on the chat? If you want to ask the question, it will be easier for us to answer. The second question was about WebGnome and whether WebGnome can be useful in the scope of EIE response system in the case of an emergency. I maybe didn't retranslate the question very well. If you don't understand, it's my fault, and maybe I should ask for a rewriting of the question.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I have understood the question.
Okay. Okay, so we have
yes. About the accuracy, WebGnome and Oscar. So it's a complicated question, and this is what we have explained during all this presentation is it's not possible to know which model to use in which context and in which area. So you have to run different models and then to compare the models in order to see which one would be the better one. But personally, I have not compared WebGnome and Oscar, so I could not say you which is better than the other or which accuracy. It depends of the input data, the metration data you use for the modeling too.
Yes, it's mainly the metration data that you use.
Yes.
Determine the
direction
of the drift.
Thank you very much. Are there any more questions?
But in Oscar, maybe the difference between WebGnome and Oscar is that in Oscar you can modelize 3D in 3D in the water column. For example, when there is a spill in the bottom, for example, you can modelize the water column, and I think it's not possible with WebGnome.
I think there's a question about the sharing of the presentation. The presentation will be shared on the GIWACAF website. So there is a specific place for webinars and replays. So we'll have a link to a YouTube video, because GIWACAF has a YouTube channel, so it will be posted on GIWACAF YouTube channel. Okay, if we don't have any more questions, I think we're a bit ahead of a bit late on the time.
Yeah.
Thank you to everyone who participated to this webinar. Thank you to Pierre and to Vincent.
Thank you.
So we hope to hear from you soon, and thank you again. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Have a good evening too.
Bye.
Goodbye to everyone.
Bye. Goodbye to everyone.
Bye-bye.